A military government in Japan caused the economy to flourish due to the new merchant class. High achievements in technology developed and culture was maintained as Christianity was introduced to the island by Jesuits. But this was not just a government that unified Japan and expanded Japan's economy. This was also a period of bloodshed, beheading, prosecution of Japanese Christians, ritual suicides, and the isolation of Japan. This was the Tokugawa Shogunate. The glory days of the Tokugawa Shogunate began in the year of 1603. By ruling from the city of Edo, the civilization prospered until the year of 1868, when the shogunate began to decline due to a series of losses to the Europeans and U.S. Navy.
Under the Tokugawa Shogunate, political hierarchy existed. At the top of the command, the emperor stood. He did not hold much significant political power and required loose allegiance from the daimyo. Below the emperor was the shogun, who was the hereditary chief of the emperor's government and armies, and for that he required support from the daimyo as well. At the bottom of the hierarchy was the daimyo. The daimyo were Japanese warlords and landowners who controlled local armed warriors known as samurais. The daimyo were subordinate under the Tokugawa rule. They were religiously based and held a great deal of power and autonomy. The daimyo were required to visit the capital of Edo to prevent any uprising against Ieyasu. The shogunate had the power to discard, annex, and transform domains. Tokugawa Ieyasu asserted domination over other daimyos and established a new military government in 1603. This new government gave Japan more political unity than the islands had seen in centuries. Ieyasu isolated Japan in 1637, afraid that foreigners and foreign religion might undermine his rule.
Many religious traditions existed throughout Japan and its history due to their tolerance and assimilation of new ideas and beliefs. And the state religion at that time was Shinto, and Buddhism was also practiced. The Tokugawa era was a time of formalism and renewal. The older and more established types of religious thoughts, especially Buddhism, were a popular favor with the Japanese people as they began to feel tied to them more out of history and customs. At the time of the occurrence of formalism and Buddhism thought, renewal was taking place in Confucianism and Shinto. After internal conflict, Confucian principles of social order created a balance of power that remained fairly stable for the next 250 years. Neo-Confucianism helped unify Japan by providing justification of the Tokugawa government, which helped to lay the foundation for the structure of modern Japan. Neo-Confucianism stressed the importance of morals, education, hierarchical order, and relations in the government and society. Japanese intellectuals rediscovered the traditions of Confucianism in Chinese and Korean writings, and they began to study their own country's classics, leading them to rediscover ancient Shinto traditions as well. The Restoration Shinto is given credit for helping to create the environment necessary to end Tokugawa feudalism and for helping to lead Japan in the creation of itself as a more modern nation. In the 18th century, the contact with Europeans brought major problems which tested the cultural strength of Japan, and one which was the spread of Christianity by Jesuits, which disrupted the Buddhist ideologies. To eliminate Christian influence, the Japanese persecuted the Christians.
Economic integration became extremely important in Japan during the Tokugawa Shogunate. Their economy grew because the daimyo had to visit Edo frequently and they were forced to buy second homes there, and this took a large chunk out of their income. Also, the daimyo created roads and maritime transports that linked Edo to the castle town on 3 of 4 islands. This is how commercial traffic developed. Banking systems also developed to give loans to the daimyos. The daimyos were paid in rice, and they would convert the rice to money. This led to rice exchanges in Edo and Osaka. Because of this, Osaka later became a huge trading center. During the Tokugawa Shogunate, even peasants were making transitions from being subsistence farmers, also known as hand-to-mouth farmers, to cultivators of commercial crops to sell in the market. During this period, merchants also gained entrepreneurial and financing skills.
The social development of Japanese culture began with the original strict class structure established by Hideyoshi. The 5 classes of Japan were daimyos, warriors, farmers, artisans, and merchants in that order. Odd castes were people with a profession thought of as impure. They are not normally included in the Tokugawa caste system because of their profession. They made up the 6-class system. Taxes paid by peasants remained at a fixed amount. The warrior castes of samurais were subject to different laws and punishments. Samurais were not needed as much as warriors because of the new government Ieyasu imposed. They served more as officials in daimyo government. They set themselves apart by maintaining a different set of values called bushido. The social hierarchy began to break down as the merchant class grew increasingly powerful, while some samurais became financially dependent on them. People were not allowed to change their social status. Riots came about during these times because of natural disaster and famine.
After Ieyasu became the first shogun of Edo, Edo transformed into a political city by public works including land reclamation, new canals, clean water supply, road networks, rice cultivation, craft production, and riverbanks, which shored up with stone embankments, facilitating transport and preventing flooding. Technology was used in agriculture, such as irrigation ditches that were extended throughout valleys, fertilizers, improving seed varieties and planting methods, and farming tools for the cultivation of rice. There was a development of proto-industrial production, or craft production, by merchant houses in the major cities like Osaka and Edo. Southern Kyushu imported new technology from the west and produced blast furnace cannons and western ships. The increased contact with the West introduced the Japanese to the West's weapons, technology, and science.
The Tokugawa Shogunate was politically unified with Edo, or modern-day Tokyo, as its capital. Since it was politically unified, the culture was similar all throughout the civilization. A common currency for the shogunate, for the shoguns and lords was rice. All the samurai, or hereditary military elite, were educated. Japan used a vassal land system where people received land for service. Also, Japan finally started getting and using European technology and weapons like guns during the shogunate. In the civilization, Buddhism and Shintoism were the main religions, while the social structure was influenced by Confucianism. In the social hierarchy, the samurai were at the top, the peasants and artisans followed below. Next were the burakumen, who dealt with death for their jobs, and finally at the bottom were the classless people, like entertainers. Some of the entertainers were men who performed in kabuki theater. Only men were allowed to perform. Another art form created were haikus, which became very popular. People also created many different things like pottery, steel, porcelain, and lacquer. Plus, people commonly made scrolls and woodblock prints.
Because of Japan's location and shape as an island, the Tokugawa Shogunate remained isolated until drastic advancements in Western Europe led to travel and exploration increases and the discovery of Japan. The civilization was able to maintain their culture throughout the exploration period, but it was threatened when the Jesuits attempted to spread Christianity.
The Tokugawa Shogunate was established in 1603 by Tokugawa Ieyasu. Dutch trade was first established in Hirado during 1609. In the early 1600s, there were around 300,000 Japanese Christians, and in 1614, Christianity was banned. The persecution of Christians started in 1617. During 1615, Hidetada had issued 17 codes of conduct on military class. This said that marriages had to be approved, there was only one military castle allowed, and all castle repairs had to be approved, and a lot more. Later, in 1616, all foreign trade besides Chinese had to be
Primary Source Document 1. The Edicts of the Tokugawa Shogunate. Excerpts from Laws of Military Households by Book Shohato in 1615. The study of literature and the practice of the military arts, including archery and horsemanship, must be cultivated diligently. On the left hand, literature; on the right hand, use of arms, was the rule of the ancients. Both must be pursued concurrently. Archery and horsemanship are essential skills for military men. It is said that war is a curse. However, it is resorted to only when it is inevitable. In time of peace, do not forget the possibility of disturbances. Train yourself and be prepared. Avoid group drinking and wild parties. The castles in various domains may be repaired, provided the manner is reported without fail. The lords of the domains must select as their officials men of administrative ability. The way of governing a country is to get the right men. This primary source is self-explanatory, but is stating that men in the military should practice arts and study literature, but they must not forget that they are men of the military. And primary source document number 2, the Edicts of the Tokugawa Shogunate. Excerpts from the Edict of 1635 ordering the closing of Japan, addressed to the joint Bugyo of Nagasaki. Japanese ships are strictly forbidden to leave for foreign countries. No Japanese is permitted to go abroad. If there is anyone who attempts to do so secretly, he must be executed. The ship so involved must be impounded and its owner arrested, and the matter must be reported to the higher. This primary source speaks about when Japan became isolated, because they were not allowed to trade with foreign countries, nor were they allowed to go abroad. If they secretly left for countries, they would be executed.